we're going to take a look at simplifying trig expressions. So you're going to need to remember some of the things that we've talked about before. Remember that tangent is equivalent to sine divided by cosine. And so cotangent is equivalent to cosine over sine. And remember your reciprocals. Remember that sine has a reciprocal of cosecant. So 1 over sine is equal to cosecant. And that 1 over cosine is equal to secant. And let's see, cotangent is also reciprocal of tangent and vice versa. So cotangent is equal to 1 over tangent. We also touched on the Pythagorean identity, so that's sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1. And there will be others as we go, but for now, let's just touch on some of those basics. So let's just look at a problem so you can see what we're doing. So here's a basic one, and it just says secant t times tangent t times cosine of t. And the directions say simplify the following trig expressions completely. So what you're going to do is you're going to make substitutions. So secant is 1 over cosine. Tangent is sine over cosine. And then we have cosine, which is just cosine. I'm going to put a 1 under it. Now, the way that fractions work, remember, is that if you're multiplying fractions, you can cross-cancel things that are alike or that have something that's in common. So I could cancel out these two cosines, and I would be left with sine times 1 is sine over cosine, and sine over cosine is tangent. So we've simplified this original expression into something that is much smaller, and that's going to be your goal. You're going to be trying to simplify these expressions into things that are smaller. So let's see, let's just take a look at another one. How about this one? Let me just clear this screen. How about sine squared, I'm going to use an x this time, times cotangent of x times cosecant of x. And so sine squared is really sine times sine. So let's just break that down for a minute and see what we have. Cotangent is 1 over tangent, or it's also cosine over sine. And cosecant is 1 over sine. And remember, with fractions, so we can cancel out things that are alike. We can cross cancel, so I could cancel that and that, this and this, and I would be left with cosine x. So all we're doing is we are simplifying them. So when you have things that you can make substitutions, that's probably going to be the best route to go. You know, sometimes you have things where you have to multiply. So here's one that looks like that. Let's look at that one. That one is cosine of x times secant of x minus cosine of x. Now, when you did algebra, you had things like 5 times x plus y, and you distributed. And so you got 5x plus 5y. Same thing's going to work here. You're going to distribute, so you would have cosine of x times secant of x minus cosine of x times cosine of x. And you're probably going to be able to make some simplification. So here we have cosine of x, and secant is also 1 over over cosine of x. And cosine times cosine is cosine squared, so let's just go ahead and do that. These cancel, so we're left with 1 minus cosine squared x. Now remember that, let's clear this out so we can see. So now we have 1 minus cosine squared x. And remember, our Pythagorean identity is sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1. Now what that means is if we were to rearrange things, if I were to bring the cosine over here, I would have 1 minus cosine squared x is equal to sine squared x. So that means what I have here is equal to sine squared x. So you're trying to make substitutions so that you can get something that is simplified. And so the further down you go, the better. And you're going to need to practice some of these, and I will post some practice for you of just some basic ones.